why in the hell did NATO expand during the 20-year period, 1991 to 2011, during a period when the Russian military decreased in size by 2/3? It went from 3.5 million to 1.1. You could come up with a good explanation to justify the expansion of NATO if the Russians were building their army up, but they weren't. If the Russian was increasing weapons production, but they weren't. If the Russian was going around making threats to other countries, but they weren't. During that entire period, it was the United States in the lead, first expanding NATO in 1999, and then expanding it under George W. Bush by 7 countries that brought it right up to Russia's border, with the Baltic states being brought in 2004. And it was only in 2007 at the Munich Security Conference that Putin said basically, hey, you guys this is a red line for us. Stop coming at us. There's no time during that period where we said, hey, Russia, why don't you join us? Join NATO so we can eliminate the threat. Because why that wasn't done is because the defense contractors in the United States were pressing Congress to expand NATO because they wanted to have expanded markets for selling their products. And by God, we needed Russia as an enemy.
Yeah, you have to have an enemy for that. Yeah.
And then in 2008, in the April NATO conference, Putin again made the final warning, hey, stop. And they didn't stop. And then that led to the war, that brief 2-week war in Georgia, where he put a stop to the West attempt to take that over. And then at that point, Putin ordered some major reforms in the U.S. in the Russian military. Those reforms started going into place by 2011. But still, the Russian military did not grow significantly until the start of the special military operation, or 6 months in. And Hodges, thank God we got lots of adjectives in English, cretin, imbecile, idiot, moron, take your pick. He qualifies for them all. I mean, it's shocking to hear somebody with his prior experience be that callous, that reckless, and that incredibly shallow in his thought. It's just really astonishing. And I watched. You put a good video up on your site, just stand alone with that. I encourage people to go watch it, because when I watched it, I was like, I said, is Gary the producer screwing around with AI, making stuff up?
Gary's good enough; he might be able to do that, but in this one,
but I realized it was the real thing.
Shit. Yeah. Well, we also have some other challenging opinions in the West, shall we say. And, as I said at the outset here, Trump's been trying to get a deal between the two sides, Russia and Ukraine, to come to some kind of mutually assured agreement that can end the war. And he continues to say, well, we're kind of getting close, but then it seems that we're not getting close, et cetera. Well, now then there's a new factor that he says, and this was yesterday, to where he says the economic situation now is putting more pressure on Russia.
I think Russia, with the price of oil right now, oil's gone down. I think we're in a good position to settle. They want to settle. Ukraine wants to settle. If I weren't president, nobody would be settling. We've come a long way, and it could be something will happen.
It's always something, could be something happen. But for that to be the case, this is where we had Colonel Jacques Beau on earlier this week, and he made a really important comment that I think bears repeating, that too many times in the West we project onto our opponent the way we think. And so for Trump, gasoline prices going up is a big motivator, and if it makes the people unhappy, the president has to change policy. So they're always doing whatever they can to keep the price of gas down, et cetera. So now then that the price of gas is going down and the income for Russia is going down, that's going to put pressure on their economy. And he apparently projects that would put public pressure on Putin to finally come to an agreement that could just end the war wherever. But there was an interview by Putin, on the 30th of April, to where he was talking to some Russian children to tell them the importance of the Great Patriotic War. And when you see what he's talking about the character and the spirit of the Russian people. I don't think that this level of slight discomfort economically is going to be moving the dial much in Russia.
When I said that this is a holiday for practically every one of our families, it is only natural because with such enormous losses, 27 million people for the entire Soviet Union, the exact number still not fully counted, it is clear that nearly every family was affected. And it is extremely important to use modern opportunities to convey this information, this truth about the past, in this case, about the Great Patriotic War and its heroes, to pass it on to both today and tomorrow. Only by understanding the price at which our today and our tomorrow were secured, only by grasping the cost and the deeds of our ancestors, our fathers, grandfathers, even great-grandfathers, grandmothers, in defending the motherland, only by realizing the sacrifice it entailed, can we comprehend who we are, where we came from, and what our country truly is.
So is economic difficulties and pain at the pump, or even new sanctions, is that going to cause Russia to capitulate and say, all right, we'll just end the war where it's at. We won't worry about getting everything else we asked for?
Yeah. Trump, despite having gone to Wharton Business School, is not really good with this economic stuff, despite, he's good at refinancing loans where he's been on the verge of bankruptcy. Look, if the price of oil goes down, that means the price of gasoline in Russia is cheaper, not more expensive. So at least the Russian consumers who are driving an increasing number of driving cars, they're going to be happy with that. When the price of oil goes down, that means it is cheaper. Usually when prices go down, people buy more of a cheaper product so they could sell more overseas. So, as far as this having a dramatic impact on Russia's, economy, as far as a negative impact, it's not going to happen. But, I got to visit along with Judge Napolitano, the Victory Museum in Moscow. And it's both an area of about 2 square miles with artifacts from World War II, tanks, armored personnel carriers, tanks, artillery pieces. But then the museum itself, it's really one of the most moving, remarkable experiences I've ever participated in. And I've been to lots of museums around the world, both whether we're talking Cairo, London, Paris, the Louvre. And this entire thing is designed to help the Russian people remember, to never forget. And they don't. It resonates with them. And, Trump's attitude with respect to all of this is so, like Ben Hodges, cavalier, shallow, not at all thoughtful. He likes to pretend that this is just some sort of beef between Ukraine and Russia, like, one likes vanilla ice cream with vanilla bean specks and the other doesn't. So that's what they're fighting over. He fails to take responsibility that he himself, Donald Trump, was responsible. It was during his time as president that the Ukrainian military quadrupled in size. It was during his first term as president that Ukraine started receiving lethal material supplies in the form of javelin weapons that were to be used against Russian targets. It was during his time that the U.S. NATO military exercises with Ukraine were being conducted as offensive operations, included amphibious warfare and anti-submarine warfare. And it was in September of 2020 that Donald Trump's Pentagon thought it a good idea to allow B-52 bombers to fly along the Crimea coast as part of a military exercise, sending what message to Russia? So the Russians don't view the United States as some great mediator who's just, hey, we're here to help. How can we help clean this mess up? We're the ones that created the goddamn mess.
Well, yeah, that's lost on, well, nearly everyone in the United States. I doubt anybody's even aware of those things. I don't know that Trump ever even thinks about them, but they are definitely having an impact on this. It just, again, seems extremely unlikely that Russia will ever budge an inch beneath their June 14 lines. And I think that almost certainly it's going to be up to the Dnieper River, because I don't see any possibility that Ukraine will agree to anything, even the June 14 lines, which I think they will definitely come to regret in time.
Well, did you see Scott Bessent's speech yesterday?
I saw the headline, but I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Okay, so here's what he said. He says, basically, we signed this agreement with Ukraine so we can show the Ukrainians that there's no daylight between us and the United States. And basically, we signed this agreement so that Donald Trump will have leverage over the Russians. That, yeah, we're gonna harvest all these rare earth minerals unless you give in to us. I'm going, Bessent is a well-educated person, and he was a successful Wall Street guy. But it's like, dude, that's pretty stupid. You don't understand why the Russians and Ukrainians got into this. You have no leverage because, in fact, Russia controls most of the territory that has those raw materials that you want so badly. I mean, look at a map. And the fact that Bessent believes that, and I guarantee you Trump believes that, it just shows you they're so divorced from reality. It's like, if you're dealing with a mental patient and they are caught up with all of their schizophrenic dreams, even if you get a medication, it doesn't necessarily bring a cure.